wow, look at this.
This brings back memories.
Sure does. Good memories.
Yeah.
So the RC10T, a big step for Associated, you know, following the RC10. And I mean, how did we come up with this? Do you remember how we came up with this? Or the reason we made a truck?
Yeah, at the time, there was just, we had the buggy, right? And then people were making aftermarket stuff, making truggies. Just, we didn't even know what it was, and people started putting on wider arms and bigger tires, and started getting popular. Easy to drive, fun. You can jump over the track and the rails and stuff, and not flip over.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues was trying to figure out what it is. Is it a truggy? Is it a monster truck? Is it a stadium truck? Which is kind of what it ended up being called.
Well, that's why we did the body the way it was. We tried to make it look like a real truck. Roll bars, number plates, and all that on there to kind of make it look semi-realistic, but wasn't really.
But I mean, the decision to make a truck kind of spawned from, there were buggies racing everywhere. The RC10 was out for quite some time, and then there was companies making conversion kits to convert. Not even a complete truck was available. It was just take these parts and find other parts from other manufacturers and put it all together, and you have a truggy or a truck or what it was called. And then obviously one of our competitors brought out a truck a couple years before we did this, and we were forced to do it. But I think we were all probably sitting around the table at one of our lunch meetings, and it was like, hey, I think we better make a truck.
Well, it started growing once they came out with it. It's like obvious that we had to do it to get the competition going, and great idea.
Here we go again. We're gonna make it again.
Yeah.
Fun project.
When did we start this? 89?
I think.
Well, we got the drawings right here, right?
Yeah, we got some drawings, and these drawings don't bring back fond memories because this was long hours drawing this stuff with a pencil and drafting equipment back then.
No CAD or CNC mills back then.
That's right. Manual mills and pencils and erasers, and lots of erasers. So I think when we decided to make a truck, luckily with the buggy, we were able to use the front pickup plate, which had two positions, to make the wheelbase longer, because the truck needed to be longer than the buggy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be a wheelie machine.
Well, you must have been forward thinking, because in the buggy we never really ran it in a long position.
Well, Roger, when he designed the RC10, the original one, I mean, there was a lot of forward thinking in that thing for just, options for different things down the line. And, thankfully he designed it that way because it allowed us to actually push the front end out and make a truck.
Yeah.
Or something at least in the truck length,
Well, here's even a prototype of what we ran. We took the buggy front end, the kick up, and just machined it narrower, for the longer arms, but we used the actual RC10 part. Just had the extra holes in there to make it longer.
Well, I think with the rear hubs that we used from the buggy and the arm mounts and the chassis from the buggy, that kind of dictated an arm length for the rear, and we were trying our best to get the front arm a similar length to the rear. It was close, but that's why we narrowed the front kick-up, was to be able to run a more narrow front bulkhead and get the arms longer, even though the truck the T used the same caster blocks and axle stuff and rear hubs and arm mounts and so forth, but the front bulkhead was different and more narrow.
We actually came out with the rear hubs with more towing in it, because the truck's just didn't have as good a tires as we have now.
You're right.
So adding, I think we did 3 degrees in the back plus the arm toe in, so we have about 4
Yeah, we
degrees.
could put a ridiculous amount of toe in the rear end, but that was the game with T's, was trying to get the things hooked up where you could drive them really hard, because that's what people wanted. They wanted something that wasn't just spinning out and oversteering in the corners. They wanted something they could drive just punched out of their mind, and it was fun to drive. And that's kind of where this narrow tire came from. Is our logic was just, well, the tires have no rear grip, and if you put those on the front, then you have an oversteer machine, and so how do we make it push? Well, buggies have a narrow front tire. Why don't we do it in the truck? And it was next thing we do with every project is, what are the rules, right? Get the rule book out and look at the rules. And
didn't say anything about how narrow it could be.
It was a maximum width. It was
the minimum diameter.
Maximum width.
Probably for the wheel and the tire.
And no minimum or as far as the width goes. So we said, okay, well, let's just scale it off the buggy, and voila! When we tried it, we got exactly what we wanted. The truck you could drive, it really punched, and it didn't have a lot of steering, but it was fun to drive that way.
Fun to drive, yeah.
So that, and then obviously controversy followed us when we showed up at the first race with it, and it appeared to be an advantage, and I don't remember, maybe you do, was it outlawed by Roar, or was it just pressured to not use it?
Well, I think at that race there was, I don't know if there was an official protest, but people were complaining about us having those narrow tires, and then it was decided that we could run them for that race. But after that race, Roar, I think, implemented a rule, like a minimum width rule. Because we made the molds, we included the narrow front tire and the wide front tire in the kits. And then eventually we stopped making the wide or the narrow front tire. It just was outlawed.
But it looked cool too.
Yeah.
And it looked cool on the track. It was like a buggy with a big buggy with a truck body on it. It just it didn't fit kind of the mold that had already been started with the conversions and the
they actually, the first kits that we did came with the wide tires and the narrow tires.
Wow, I don't remember that. Wow,
yeah.
Okay. So
I didn't remember that either, but people brought it back to my attention.
Well, I mean,
but it made sense because this kit wasn't out when we were in Florida, right?
That's right.
Testing it. So by the time we came out with it, we had wide wheels for the front and narrow wheels for the front. So why not just put them both in there?
That makes sense. And this is the most nostalgic vintage item here that was so controversial in the beginning of the 10T. So why not include them?
Mm-hmm. As for the kit now, the re-release basically, or the 60th anniversary version, we decided just to put the narrow wheels and tires in there. People can get wide front wheels, right, and wide tires, but they can't find the narrow wheel and the narrow tire. So I thought just the best idea was just put the narrow wheel and the narrow tire in the kit, and that'll satisfy a lot of the people's needs for retro parts that they can't get anymore.